Good morning, guys. I'm very excited to share this interview with you today. I'm going to share with you beautiful brother that we met, Roxy and I, on our trip to Egypt, Anand. And through our time together, it became obvious that he was just our kind of person. You know, when you meet someone and you just click and you talk more and more, you look forward to the conversations each time you sit together and you're able to go deep. And of course, when you meet someone like that, you stay in contact with them long after our brief time together, which was in Egypt. And we've got to know one another better, and we've met your beautiful partner, Katie, as well. And listen, it's just been for us one of the highlights of our trip was, of course, the people that we met along the way. So I want to welcome you this morning to, first of all, our YouTube channel and sharing this time and information with us. Thank you, Anand.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure. I love you and Roxy. We got along right away from the get-go on the trip, and we had some real deep conversations, and got to have you on my podcast, and we had an incredible time talking, and talked for a long time after the podcast ended as well. And I'm excited to be on Awakening Education and have another beautiful sacred chat with you.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's that alignment with that mission of sharing the information to, let's call it the newly awakened. You know, like we both kind of, God bless the unawake, you know, when it's time, they'll find us. And what Roxy and I always try to do in the information that we present is to make this process of the awakening, the idea that we're more than just the limited self, make that something that the everyday person can relate to. You know, certainly one of the things we appreciate about you is that, let's say, and I'm sure you get what I mean by this, but you're pretty normal. You know, you've got a business, you know, you live in an apartment, not in the back of a van, you know, you haven't spent years running around as a guru or doing some sort of teachings or whatever. You know, you're in business, you've studied, you've committed to this, you've done a lot of different courses like a lot of people would have, but you're still using and implementing spiritual principles in your day-to-day life. And I would love to hear your thoughts on what you think about integrating these beautiful, wonderful spiritual principles and still running a business, dealing with clients, answering emails, like all of the things of the 3D combined with the 5D. How are you finding that wonderful challenge at the moment?
It's definitely a challenge. I tell you, it's part of this life journey that we're on. And I think that my belief is that we chose to incarnate on this earth. And, you know, a large part of that is living in that 3D, going through the 3D experiences. And then once we get a little bit of insight or deep connection into the 5D realms and higher consciousness, higher self, God connection, Christ consciousness, all these things, once you get a little taste of it, you know that it's this never-ending stream of information that you can access. So you constantly want to go back and learn more. So I started out on the self-development journey, did a lot of the Tony Robbins work. There was another company called New Peaks where I studied for like 10 years, all different types of, you know, business seminars and investing and, you know, trying to become a millionaire and all these things. Like that was like the journey that I was on until I started, you know, really tapping into my spiritual side. And I think growing up, I always knew that there was another element to life, another layer that I needed to unravel, because as a child, you know, there's a very familiar, I guess, life experience that most of us have, and especially people who, you know, are attracted to the work that you do, the work that I do, is that maybe as children, we didn't feel like we were totally normal. And we feel like maybe that there was some lack of, maybe we didn't feel loved, or we didn't feel fully understood, or whatever it was. Everybody has a story of why they feel different. But I always knew that I was different. And at the same time, I always knew that there was some kind of greatness within me. And I had very low self-esteem when I was younger, low self-worth, feeling unworthy of anything. I didn't feel a part of any kind of friends group. And God bless my parents. They're amazing people, and they did everything they could for me. But they came to the United States from India in the 70s. And in India, when kids are raised, they're raised by the entire family. There's grandparents, uncles, aunts, all this kind of stuff. But in the States, it was just my parents, and they worked all the time. But they were also very conscious of contributing to the community and all this kind of stuff. So I kind of felt like I was just like figuring things out on my own a lot and spending a lot of time on my own. So anyways, I kept following this thread because I grew up in a Hindu household, and Hinduism, I think, is more of a way of life to me, in that you have a direct experience with God. You can go into meditation, you can kind of access your own deep connection to source and ask questions. That was like a big part of the what I took out of this whole thing. So I just kept pulling on the thread of that, started getting into more experiences, more direct contact. I got into astrology when I was in high school. There was an astrologer, a family friend, came in and did a reading, and I was like, holy shit, how do you know all this stuff about me just from reading the time that I was born, the place that I was born? And I was like, okay, that really like set into motion this thought of, okay, there's forces out there that are much more powerful than just this 3D reality of, going to high school, going to college, getting a job, getting married, having kids, all this kind of stuff. I just saw that as like, this path that everybody else is on, it might not necessarily be the path that I want to go on to. So I ended up having more experiences. In 2009, I went to this place in India where you just give your thumb impression, and they literally have your entire life written on these ancient scrolls written 2,000 years ago. It's called Nadi astrology. And they knew my name. They knew my parents' names. They knew everything about me in terms of the college, major that I went into, that I was going in for shoulder surgery. They knew everything. They knew the year that I was going to come. And this was written 2,000 years ago. So that blew my mind. I was like, what fucking reality am I living in? But I think that because I opened myself up to these things, that you start attracting them. And then having experience with ayahuasca and having, all these different soul journeys, going to Egypt, so many different experiences on my life really just opened up my consciousness, my third eye. And through the meditations that I do, and just understanding that there's nothing wrong about being this 3D world. It's the world that we live in, and it's perfect exactly as it is. Everybody where you are is perfect. You get to recreate or change the direction of your life. And I call them lifelines, because if we do the same things over and over, we have a predictable path that we're going to go down. And we know the result of what our efforts are, because what we have right now is just from the past actions, and you're getting today's results, right? So if we want to change that, we need to start changing the way that we think, the way that we act, and the way that we want to serve. So if you want to create a new life, all you have to start doing is unwinding the programs of our mind, and then start choosing new things. And it doesn't have to be things that you know for certain are going to work. It's just giving you another lifeline, another option, and then see how that goes. And if that doesn't work, you can go in a different way. But if we do the same things over and over, Einstein said it's the definition of insanity, right? So that's kind of like a little bit of a background into how I came into this. But like really just, I've been so blessed with so many different life experiences. And I love sharing these conversations and having them with people that also have these kind of, lessons in life, because I learned so much from you guys. And, I hope to share some little bit of nuggets of information that people can take. And, anytime I do a self-development course or do a spiritual journey or go to Egypt, I always say to myself, if I can just extract one piece of advice or knowledge that I can take with me, I can implement, and then I can work on, that can change the direction of your life, right? So in any day, if you could pick up one thing, or any course that you do, just focus on one thing. It doesn't have to be, you have to listen to everything that I say. There's one piece of information that can help you, try it,
Yeah. Love it. Wow. It's certainly an interesting journey, this whole journey of life, isn't it? To hear how different people awaken, particularly whether it's a process, which it sounds like it happened for you gradually over time. And then there are some people who just seem to have these spontaneous awakenings. I actually remember one time talking to a client, and she literally got hit by a bus. That was the start of her awakening. And she was a lawyer and she was successful, and she stepped off the curb without checking properly, and she got clipped by this bus and, you know, damaged their leg into a hip, stuck in hospital. And but it took a while for her to calm down from it all and the crisis and putting out fires in the different areas of her life, till eventually lying there by herself for whatever reason. She said even by the chance the day that it happened for her, the internet was out. So there's nothing else she could do to distract herself. She finally went in, and it dawned on her that she was unfulfilled. And that was a massive thing. She's doing all this activity, living this life, and she's not fulfilled. And that was the start for her of exploring her spiritual journey. And interestingly, still does law. You know, a lot of people sometimes say, oh, I have my awakening, and what I want to do is quit my job so that I can focus on my spirituality. And one of the things I recommend, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is I say to people, look, it's so good that you're enthusiastic about it all and they're doing the inner work and being of service to others. However, if you quit your job, you do need to be realistic and think about, if you're, you know, unless you've got finances that are unlimited, which is very rare, you've got to think about how are you going to support yourself after that? Because even if you feel at this moment that it's not in alignment, if you do end your primary source of income, very quickly what you'll fall into are thoughts and emotions of scarcity and lack. And that will actually hinder, because it's root chakra, right? That will hinder your spiritual progress more than going into an office where there's negative people and you're shining the light. But you need to be in that office because you need to earn an income to keep yourself out of scarcity and lack. And you'll actually go backwards more than you'll go forward. So you need to really think about decisions like that. What are your thoughts like that? Have you observed anyone in the similar sorts of decisions they've had to make?
Yeah, I think that's, you know, everybody, like you said, everybody has different ways in which they get awakened, and awakening has so many different levels and waves to it, right? I had some awakenings that were small, some that were really big. But at the end of the day, we have to be realistic in, we are balancing both worlds, the 3D and the 5D. And we have to serve it in a way that, you know, that aligns with our life, our mission, and also our ability to be in both places. And if we're coherent in the brain and in the heart, that's when life becomes a lot easier, when we have our brain thinking, okay, I need to make money, I need to make money, I need to make money. But then the heart is just saying, I want to serve. Yeah, that you can find a way in which you can, both of those things can kind of align. But if you're about the money rather than about the contribution, so there's a little bit of like, you know, like fighting between the two, and they're both not aligned. In terms of how to do it, it's, you know, everybody has a different path on that question. But what was your initial question on that?
Well, my initial question on that would be, what are your thoughts about, be careful about making rash decisions when you're all inspired, because a month later, you're going to go off and be of service. Mm-hmm. And that's really, it's beautiful. It's a lovely thing. However, the reality is that if you're going to be of service, you can volunteer your time, right? Or you need to exchange time for money in giving of your energy as of being of service. So we're talking about spiritual business. Now that takes time to build those foundations. So the question was, what are your thoughts about, be careful, because if you fall into lack in terms of in and around your spiritual development, being in lack, like when you're struggling for money, it's a really low realm vibration to be in, very all-consuming, because it's like root chakra stuff, right? So if you're down in lack, while you might think you want to open your third eye and you open your crown and connect to source, it's really difficult when you're sitting there worried about how you're going to pay the rent next week, or there's a notice getting stapled on the door, and you're stressed about that. Very hard to be awakened and enlightened to the align. It can happen, and so look, there's always exceptions to every rule, but generally speaking, I wanted to hear your thoughts about someone transitioning into being of service to others. Your thoughts on that and that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can do the extreme. I mean, there's one way to exit that matrix and quit your job. You can go to India and live on an ashram and volunteer and just live there and be self-sustained, work in the farming and, pick herbs and all this kind of stuff and meditate, or go to Tibet and on a mountaintop. But at the end of the day, yeah, you're going to evolve seriously on a spiritual level. But are you ready from going from a job to like all of a sudden just giving up that whole life of the 3D, all the people around you, to then just focus on spirituality? It is a huge drop. Like it's a complete different world. But if you're ready for it, maybe, you kind of like edge towards that and you realize, okay, this world is not necessarily the world that I want to live in. And it's beautiful to then go and serve in an ashram and just really just dedicate yourself to studying all that. That's one option, right? But for me, I just know that I came into this world for a reason, and, to be awakened and to be around in this time when there's so many changes happening in the world. I don't want to just be on a mountaintop meditating somewhere. So how do I serve my best abilities in the role that I play, in the identity that I've created, in the skill sets that I've had? It only makes sense for you to do it in slow ways, right? Maybe take a few weeks off, do a meditation retreat, or do a 10-day Vipassana or something like that, and see how you feel after that. Obviously, I totally understand. I know so many people that are working corporate jobs, really stressed out, but it's kind of like the old adage that say, okay, once I quit my job, I'll be happy. Once I make $1 million, I'll be happy. How many times do we tell ourselves, once I have this ... then all my problems will go away? That's never the case. It's never, ever, ever the case. And what you need to do is find the happiness in the moment. If you can find the happiness working that job that you're not happy at, maybe there's another, job that's kind of like similar to yours, but you don't have the same kind of responsibilities or the same kind of people that are around you. But really, we have to be responsible for our emotions, our actions, and our choices. So there's always choices out there. You have to decide, okay, do I want to have this certain lifestyle where I'm making really good money, having all the fun stuff, nice apartment, nice car, and all that kind of stuff? Or maybe I can do something that's a little bit more service. It's possible you can make more money, but the possibility is also you make lower money. But are you willing to let go of a certain lifestyle or drop that down a little bit? Everything is a choice, and it depends on your intention behind it all. At the end of the day, once you start getting really deep into the spiritual side of things, there's two ways to look at it. There's the belief of the abundance where the money will flow and you can do anything and have all these beautiful choices. That's obviously the ideal. But then there's also the feeling some people get that money is not the end all. Money only is an energy, and it depends on if it's the positive vibrations coming from you, the frequencies coming from you. You could use it for good, but you could also use it to be destructive. So there's so many levels to look at it. But I would say for anyone who wants to just jump into spirituality, it's not like one of those things. It can go real deep, real fast. So take your time with it. There's no rush. And one of the cool things I'll share with you is I just recently had an experience a couple of weeks ago with 5-MeO DMT, Bufo. Have you heard of it, Pete?
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah, I haven't had the experience, but
yeah,
I've heard positive things.
So it is, it's incredible. It's a complete ego dissolution. And there's so many lessons I'd learned from it we could go into later. But one of the most important things was there's all the time in the universe. The universe will give you all the time that you need to learn the lesson, to move through what you need to move through, to let go, to forgive, to just find pure happiness. You can learn the lessons after one experience. If you have a bad experience with, say, like a certain type of person, if you're dating or something like that, and you can continually attract the same people, that lesson just keeps coming over and over until we learn the lesson, let go of that vibrational attachment to it, and then we move on to something better, right? So we could do it in a couple of experiences. We can do it over a couple of years. We can take a lifetime or several lifetimes. There's no such thing as time in the universe. So until you're ready to move to the next level, that's completely up to you. But again, everything is a choice.
Yeah, that's beautifully put. And I like, just to loop back to that part about these choices too, ties in with our beliefs and the choices that we make. And there can be a couple of ways to look at how we manifest things into our life. And I often am not 100% sure which one is the ultimate way. But, there's like, let's say it's Bashar. And Bashar says, live your highest excitement in the now moment without expectation on any particular outcome. And the universe will conspire using the organizing principle to put you in the right place at the right time. And you'll manifest what it is that you're after because of the state that you're in, being in that high vibrational state. And then there's another course of thought which says, you set your goal, you set your positive expectation or focus on what it is you would like to achieve. And if possible, turn that into a feeling so that you're already celebrating the arrival of that before it's ever even shown up. So it's not so much you're excited about the holiday or buying the apartment or whatever the thing may be. It's more the feeling of that. And they talk about that envisaging rather than envisage and etc. And then you'll, by focusing on that, be motivated to take action, and you'll take the right action and you'll be led, and it's more of a process. But one is almost like manifestation out of thin air, or the other one is the process. Oh, what about our chat? I remember this. We were chatting to you about buying air tickets, and it's like, we've got a business and expenses and etc. And we were laughing about how when you want to fly somewhere, you sit there and you go, do I buy the economy ticket, which is $2,000, or do I get on the same plane and buy a business class ticket, but it's $10,000? It's like so much more. The plane's going to the same place, but am I in a poverty mindset when I go just buy the $2,000? Should I be thinking, if I'm a 10 grand person, that then I'll create 10 grand opportunities for myself? So am I holding myself back by spending the two, or am I? And I always flip and flop with little. Well, that's what goes on in my head. Go, well, what's the right one to do? You remember we laughed about that?
Absolutely. That's why, we share very similar thinking, and I had the same fucking experience, dude. So the whole trip to Egypt was very powerful experience for me. And I'll just kind of share like my mindset throughout the process. So our mutual friend, Brant, him and I started coming across Robert's work, Robert Edward Grant's work, couple of months at the same time. So we were like exchanging like videos that he did. It was like, oh, this would be so cool. And then Brant's like, oh, he's doing a expedition to Egypt. We should go. And I'm like, holy shit, I've always wanted to go to Egypt. I've always known I need to go there. Let's do it. Right. So they have you sign up an application. You have to submit a video and all this kind of stuff, as you know. So I submitted it. I got in, and then the time for the deposit came, and I was like, I don't know if I should do this right now. I have so many things going on in the business, and 12 days away from, my girlfriend, my dog, and, being away from the business, and all these kind of things like started coming up in my head. So I just put it on pause for a second. And then I'm like, you know what? It's not the right time. And then that happens a lot of times to us, right? We have this like really beautiful feeling that we want to do something. And then we're like, then the limited mind comes in and is like, oh, you sure you want to do this? Is it the right time to spend the money and all this kind of stuff? So I said no. And then a couple of weeks later, Brant texted me again. And he's like, dude, I was at an event and Robert was there and we sat and had lunch, and he's like, you got to come. So we're going to go. You got to come. And I was like, you know what? I was actually thinking this whole time that I said no, that there was something wrong about that decision. And a lot of times the universe will when amazing opportunity comes and you say no, it won't come back. But in my case, I was very lucky that it came back around. And in the meantime, I was having a lot of dreams about Egypt. So I was like, okay, this needs to happen. So I ended up signing up for it. And then at that moment, I'm like, if I'm going to do this, I have to kind of pull away some of those like limiting beliefs and that scarcity mindset. So if I'm going to go, I'm going to sign up and I'm going to do business class, and I'm just going to like spend the money, and I'm going to arrive with that feeling, that vibration. So going back to what you were saying is that, there's a 3D way, like the Tony Robbins way of like, get in the right emotional state and just power, be a warrior, take the steps, have the checklist, do all these things. It works. It works for millions of people. And it's an amazing experience to go through that and achieve success. And I've done that, but a lot of times there's a lot of energy involved in that process. Then I started doing a little bit more of the Dr. Joe Dispenza work, which is more of a wizard mentality. Instead of being the warrior where you're like going after it and really staking your claim physically, the wizard mentality is like, okay, get into a really calm, peaceful place, feel the feelings of what you want to attract. And it's almost like going to the place of where you want to end up, knowing it's happened, and then drawing that reality closer to you. And what I will say, just going through both of those stages in my life, is the second one, being the wizard, is way more powerful. Because then once you start manifesting things like this in a day, in an hour, in a few minutes, I'll be thinking about somebody and boom, I'll get a phone call from them. I called my buddy Dennis yesterday, and he was like, holy shit, I was thinking about you just this second. I was about to pick up my phone. And, these are the kind of magical things that can happen. But again, when you're in heart and brain coherence, and when you're getting to those states, you can literally attract everything. And what you have to really be careful about is like, just focus on what you want to have in life rather than focus on what you don't want. So just being very, concentrated on the outcomes and the future that you want, rather than all the things that trigger you, all the things that you don't want, your past. If we're stuck in the past, how can we create a new compelling future?
Yeah, I love that. And let's give it another layer of complexity, because let's bring into that decision, because I think this is helpful for people. People make decisions all the time about whether to illogical decisions. It's like you walk past a shop and you see a nice looking pair of sneakers and you think, they look good, but nah, I'm not spending $200. I'd only buy them if they're on sale. I'm a classic for that one too. If they're on sale, if it's too good to be true, oh, wow, look at that, meant to be. But if it's not, I don't. Then you can pull into, all right, well, what's underneath all of that? What is underneath? What influences us make decisions? Is there false beliefs, limitations in and around scarcity? Are there limitations and self-beliefs in and around self-love? I'm not worthy of good things. I can't have that unless it's on sale, etc. Like when we make decisions for ourselves in our lives, all of that patterning that's influenced us through our childhood influences the decisions that we make as an adult. So to loop all of this together, the more work you do on yourself, the more you go in and clear out your childhood traumas. Like, I love how eloquently right at the start of the interview, you went straight to the emotions of how you felt in your childhood. Very powerful. A lot of people would never go there or would never share it like this, something that's going to go out publicly. So that in itself is a demonstration that you've worked through a lot of that stuff, right? But the more you unpack the hidden determinants of behavior, right, those are hidden little things within yourself, the more you're able to, I feel, make decisions that are more in alignment with your true passion and not some sort of egoic quest to fulfill some sort of desire which is coming from a place of lack. Did you follow what I meant by all that?
Yeah, 100%. And, everybody has different value systems too, right? So like for somebody getting a Gucci pair of shoes or sneakers, like that's like the greatest thing in the world. For me, it's a pair of sneakers. For me, experiences are where it's at. Like that turns me on, like going to Egypt and, seeing the ancient pyramids, like some people who are really into the material world, that's not for them. Like, oh my goodness, why would you go to Egypt? It's it's this or that. But no, so everybody has a different thing that really motivates them and gets them to a high elated state in in their emotional state. And emotions are like energy in motion. So the more energy that you're charging up with, that kind of like carries you through, whether it's in the 5D or in the 3D. But yeah, I mean, like everybody has the ability to, choose what they want and all this kind of stuff. Going into your childhood, like I used to carry it around as a story as to why I didn't have the things that I wanted in life, or didn't have the love that I wanted in life, or whatever it was. It was always my story. And I told everybody about the story. I told my parents, like, this is how I feel. And, like almost like it was an excuse for why I'm not living the life that I want to. It's somebody else's fault, not taking responsibility for how I act or how I show up every single day in my life. And it was an excuse to treat people poorly, to be selfish, to not care about family or these kinds of things, to resent people. But at the end of the day, like now I carry it as this beautiful experience that only because I went through that and had to like do the work, the self-work. And at first, like the self-development was a lot of like ego and like building up confidence and building up this armor around me, like, oh, I'm invincible, building my muscles, doing all that stuff. And then only to realize that that's just the physical part, but you're still a wounded child. So you have to do the spiritual work and like kind of like really sink into that part of you and understand that, the child version of you, the version of you 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even, it's a completely different person. And just to have so much gratitude for that person. One of the things I was thinking about today in my journaling sessions, and by the way, since Egypt, I've been like journaling every single day. And I really want to start a Substack of these thought flows that are coming to me, because it's like I'm journaling for like, hours at a time, like 2 hours a day sometimes. But what was I talking about? I lost my train of thought. Before I was talking about the journaling. Oh, yes. So writing a letter to from the 10 years ago version of you to the version of you right now, and do it from the 10-year version of you 10 years ago, write it from that perspective, and talk to the guy in the present moment and say, these are the things I would like to achieve. Like, how can I get there? And then the version of you right now is like, you're already here, bro. Like, this is you following that path, and just be so grateful to what you have gone through. And all those pains led to so much growth and to so much love. 10 years ago, I was, still like lack of self-confidence. I didn't love myself. I didn't love my family. I didn't have a fulfilling relationship. I was chasing after all these girls that didn't, show me the same kind of love that I wanted, so there was just like so much like, hurt in my life. And then I look at my life now, fast forward all those years, only because of that pain that I went through, it had to transform into something. And luckily I didn't go down the path of like drugs and sex and, all these kinds of things where it could have been very destructive. And there was a time in which, I drank a lot and, was going out with a lot of different girls and stuff like that. But if I continued down that path, it wouldn't have brought me anywhere close to where I am now. So during my ayahuasca experience 9 years ago now, that was the trigger that transformed my life. So all that self-development work that I did, that I had to build this armor on, it went from here to here. And I started like understanding that this needs to open up, because if you want more love in your life, but you're not showing love to anyone in your life, why would you think that more love would come into your life? So you have to understand what you put out is what you're attracting. Every thought that you put out there, sending a radio signal to the universe to give you more of that. So, our brains, we literally remember every thought that we've ever had in our entire life since day one. These things are being stored, and it's getting stored in a program. And if you think about, say you have, it's probably way more than this, but say you have like 1 million thoughts and that's all been recorded. If 99% of those thoughts were negative or feeling unloved, and 1% was like, how do you get out of that realm? So I think that, one of the things that really helped me, in addition to doing a lot of the self-development work and doing a lot of the mind work was to do psychedelics. And not saying it's for everybody. I don't recommend it for everyone, but my ayahuasca experience really blew my heart wide open. And it sunk everything that I understood intellectually into my heart. And I had to go through every experience where I hurt somebody, where somebody hurt me, and I was able to see it from the other person's perspective. And that kind of like negated these like really strong feelings of, somebody fucked me over or whatever it was. I had to understand everybody is doing the best that they can, including my parents, including my family, including my friends, my former friends, people that have hurt me, former girlfriends. Everybody's just trying to do the best that they can with the knowledge they have and the experience that they have. So for me, I was able to forgive so much in that experience. I was able to apologize. So I took that time after my first ayahuasca experience, and I reached out to all the people that I've harmed or harmed me, and I made amends. And I spent like 6 months doing this, even for little things. And during that time, I was able, like literally, my dry skin went away, my allergies went away, my asthma went away. And then, doing one psychedelic experience is really powerful. It opens you up, but it's not the end of the road. There's no like automatic enlightenment. You're still going through all the steps in life and all the experiences. And sometimes, I get triggered, but the more we can be aware of ourselves, really we're the arbiters of our life. We get to decide every aspect of it, who we let into our lives, what we want to do with our lives, how we want to contribute, and how we want to spend our time. Do we want to spend time watching TV, or do we want to spend time going inward? Because inwards, our higher selves, that's like the greatest teacher and the most amount of information that we can really understand and utilize. So there's so many different ways in which we could go about this life, but I speak from my own experience. It might not be for everybody, but really there's so many levels that we can unlock, but we just have to be open to it. And it doesn't always happen in a day. After one ayahuasca experience, it could be lifetimes or an entire life. And I don't think that I'll ever stop trying to grow and be open to it. But ego is a thing that kills us when we think we know everything. Everybody else is wrong. We're on the good team. We're on the right side. Everybody else, they got problems, So it's like letting go of the ego and being okay and being open to be able to change your mind based on new information. I think that's really, trying to be as open as possible to any kind of experience really will open up so many new possibilities for you.
Yeah, certainly. Mother Ayahuasca has this beautiful ability to be able to help a person transcend their ego. One of the places I do notice, though, the ego gets very crafty at hiding is in spiritual practice. Could you give me your thoughts on what you think of this term, the spiritual ego, and how you see it playing out for some people?
Yeah, I mean, my goodness, we could go into so many different directions with this, but yeah, like just because, we have an experience with ayahuasca and we've learned a lot of things, it's really important to not just try to have the experience and then forget it and then pretend like everything's okay without doing the actual work afterwards. And I think it's so important. And for me, anytime I have an experience or do any kind of course, is to really focus on, now that you have this information, how are you going to integrate it into your life, right? Having an ayahuasca experience, as long as you're not fighting and trying to be too egotistical, try to control the entire experience, you're going to get some amazing downloads, some downloads that only grandmother ayahuasca can give to you. Your higher self is providing for you. What a blessing it is. But to then, abuse that and just continue to just have the ayahuasca experiences without doing the work afterwards, that's partly like the 3D and the 5D, right? We can't always be in the 5D realm. We can't always be in the 3D realm. We have to have the balance. So you're getting these amazing insights. What are you going to do with them? So I think that, from the ego of their perspective, like there's a lot of people that say, oh, I've done ayahuasca. Like, oh, you haven't, like, you really need to do it. It's like, everybody's on their own life journey. And for me personally, I think that, there are some people that want to, I guess, talk more about like how spiritual they are. But in all reality is like alignment is everything. Talking the talk, you have to walk the walk in the same time. And I've tried to be as aware as possible, in the ways that I might be a little bit egotistical in the way that I live my life or how I want to be perceived and this identity that I've created and all this kind of stuff. But as long as you're super honest with yourself, but I think that, yeah, like the ayahuasca and some plant medicines, they can show you, or you can have really good friends that will call you out on sometimes if you're being a little bit too egotistical, that need for always being right. And I think I've always, like in my life, I've always had that where, oh my goodness, if I'm having an argument with somebody, I'm always the right one and they're always the wrong one. And I'm trying to, explain my case all the time. Like this is why you're wrong. And this is why I'm right. And I'm in integrity and all this kind of stuff. But in reality, it's all an illusion, man. It's just, everybody is right from their perspective. And how dare we judge anyone else on the way that they live their lives? It's
yeah. Look, I've done a number of ayahuasca journeys, and I feel by the end of it, one of the big takeaways for me was really to be a lot more of the observer. And the more you're the observer and you catch yourself, even you're like, watch yourself being the observer. So the observer of the observer, the more you realize that, who are you to judge? Who is anyone to judge anything? And anything which triggers you, or anytime you feel yourself needing to, let's say for the example, being right, as soon as you need to win the conversation or be right, you go, what am I doing that for? This is coming from an emotion. This is coming from an emotion of being heard, not listened to, right? You pick it, bang, got it. Yeah. Oh, all right. And you stop that. And then I found, for me, it's been a tool that I've been able to use to stop myself from falling into old patterns, because it's all a choice. And I asked her one night, I was lying there and I'm like, so really, what is the purpose of life? Like, how do you do life well? And it's an Aussie term, but I use it all the time now. And she says it to me in such an Australian way because it's coming through the filter. But she's like, really what you've got to do to live life well is to just be a legend. Just be a legend, Pete. And I'm like, and this, for an Aussie, that is summed up in so many different ways, because, the words were be easygoing, so you're non-judgmental. Someone's got a different opinion to you, that's fine. If they think Indian food's better than Chinese, that's great. That's their opinion, no problem. I'm not triggered by that, etc. And be forgiving, be generous of spirit. She's told me a number of times, you need to be more loving. And I would be there because I have dialogue with her. I'm like, more loving. I'm a really nice guy. And she'd be going, you got so much more in you. Your capacity to love would blow you away. Be kinder, be nicer, shine your light more. And it was like the dialogue that I got, because I'd worked on the stuff. Like the first time you go in there, you're doing the work, it's like you got to clean the toilet, the stuff from all of the years. And you know what gets stuck on toilets, but the stuff, we've all got shit happens. We got to work through that, release all of that. And then you start to be over the process of time through the implementation. If a person chooses, they can choose to accept that they're not perfect, but they're going to try and be the best version of themselves that they can in their day-to-day life. So you know what? You're going to do things that stretch yourself. Tell your aunt that you love her if you've never told your aunt. You don't see your aunt very often. You only see her at Christmas. You tell your auntie that you love her, she'd probably think, what the heck's wrong with you? You've had too many drinks, right? But if you do, say it. Or if you remember that they were really kind to you when you were 7 and they bought you a gift, share that. If someone's really nice at the grocery store and they give you good service or something, you say that I really noticed you care today, and I want you to know that I noticed it and I appreciate you. Thanks very much. like in small ways, showing gratitude, giving the light, sharing the love over and over from the old pattern, from the unhealed version of, yeah, about time I got good service around here. Last time I came, it was crap. You know, like if you're stuck in that realm, you're not shining your light, right? So that ego of I deserve this, or it should be a certain way because of me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've done the work, right?
Yeah,
All that.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
I think.
so beautiful, man, the way that you said it. Like every trigger is an opportunity to look inwards. So every single person that pisses you off, if it's an interaction, if it's like a continual relationship loop that, oh, this person, whenever they say something, I get triggered. It's the best time for you to look in the mirror and say, why am I triggered by this person? And then possibly try a different outcome. Instead of attacking them or saying something mean, ask them a question. Ask them a question to like understand them better. Because a lot of times, you know, we don't know what somebody is going through in their life when maybe we perceive, we feel a little bit of slighted by them or be attacked by them. So in the end of the day, we are responsible for our feelings. So if anyone else is, you know, the master of your feelings, there's a little bit of a problem there. So, you know, just diving deeper into that love. And, you know, what would so one of the things I wrote down is anytime I get triggered, I feel scarcity or anything like that, I have to ask myself, what would the infinite power of the abundant universe tell you right now? Right. So you can't be limited in the way that you think. If something doesn't work, say at my business, I have a wellness spa, one of the equipment's not working. I used to get upset and I'll get pissed off and like, oh, where's these repair people? How come they're not coming? How come they're not answering the call? Oh, I'm going to get pissed off because now I have to refund clients if they're coming in today and they can't do that. So there was this loop, and this thing happened for like 5 years with this one particular therapy that we had. Cryotherapy just kept like breaking down, and it was the same energy just constantly happening over and over and over. And until I started thinking about it in a different way, that's when things start changing. So you have to start like acting differently towards the thing that triggered you. And from that, instead of creating the same predictable outcome every single time, you're now do something spontaneous and just be grateful. Oh my goodness, this machine has gone for 5 years and it's helped so many people. Thank you, thank you, thank you, universe. You know, that kind of thing. Or, you know, reach out to the repair people and just say, oh, hey, how's it going, guys? Like, you know, I really appreciate you guys helping, instead of getting pissed off at them or something like that. So it's like there's different things that we can do to elicit a little bit of an alternative reality. And in the space of infinite realities, infinite possibilities, if we're choosing the same one over and over and over, yeah, we're going to get the same fucking results. Try a different way with your spouse or with your kids or whoever it is, with your mom, with your dad. Try communicating in a different way and see the different outcome. And then that shows you a possibility of like, oh shit, that's completely different from what normally happens, right? So the choice is in your hands. Like there's nobody else out there that has any power over you. You have all the power to be the magician and to just start changing things around.
Yeah, I love that, because it's a combination of the awareness, as you said, self-aware. You catch yourself, you're self-aware, you're getting triggered. Go within. What's this got to do with me? How could I look at it differently? Look, I see a lot when I work with clients that people are caught in a pattern, and often they don't catch their own pattern. So where I can help people the most is when I spend more than just one session with them, because I can't get the thread in one go often. But if you're around them enough, you see a pattern in the thread. And like I've had people heal their relationship with estranged parents. So they don't talk to the father, or they don't talk to the mother, or they don't talk to this one or that one. And it's causing them upset, but they're convinced the other person's in the wrong, or the other person is a horrible person, or they're this, or they're that, the other. And once they talk it through and we look at the energy pattern around that, just like you said, through some simple communication, they can shift and change the way they deal with that person. And all of a sudden, the energy of the person themselves, it's like a big weight lifted off their shoulders. no relationship with my father or my mother or my this one or that one, brother or sister. It's usually people really close to them where it matters. It's like if someone down the road's a prick, it doesn't really bother us too much. But when it's someone that we love, like, and I can relate to this, it's like sometimes when it's people whose opinions actually matter to you and they've done something, which you're taking on as hurtful, it's difficult to get your head around, well, how else could I respond or possibly? But as soon as you catch it and you think about it, then you can start to work through it. But what you see when you're on a psychedelic or in the plant medicine is that you and we attracted that into our life in the first place in order for us to experience that emotion. So it's actually all a divine setup. So that person isn't a mongrel, they're a gift. They are actually there because you needed them to be there, because when we come in as a soul, we've got an allotment of stuff that we've got to go through, lessons that we've got to learn, experiences that we've got to have. We've all got to do our part to help all that is understand all that is, because we are a fractal of the divine, a spark of the divine. So when you're getting triggered and when you're getting ticked off by people, they're actually a gift for you to work through it. Because the more you work through the gifts and the stuff, the more we get those little answers. I've found for myself, once the work's done, so to speak, then you're in flow state. Then things start moving in a direction and life becomes a whole lot easier. Like, I'd be interested to hear what's happened with the problem machine. Has life become easier now?
Yeah. So I just decided so basically it's been 5.5 years of pretty much like very similar problems. Can't get anyone on the phone. The repair, they're in Spain, the manufacturers of this device. And like, I was just always so pissed off at them. I was like real stressed out. Like if I go on vacation and the machine's not working, it's like, and it would occur like when I'm on vacation, oh, we're having a problem with the cryotherapy machine or whatever. So I was just like going through this loop, and like the relationship that I was creating with it was like a stressful thing. I wasn't happy to have it because I felt it was like a liability. And so I, after this last time that it happened, now they're telling me they can't come out till like, I think it's like end of August. And that's like a big problem because I have clients and I have, it's one of many therapies that I have, but we have people that depend on this machine. So I decided, just maybe it's just like, if something is not easy and flowing, then it might not be the right fit. Maybe it was like a lesson for me a long time ago. Maybe rethink this, and maybe there's a different way to achieve the same outcome for your clients, and maybe move on from this therapy. And I think that that's probably one of the things they came to the conclusion with is this is causing you a lot of stress. It's not easy. It's not sustainable to continually like try to fix this thing. And, maybe it's just time to move on. So I decided I'm going to do a different type of therapy, still involved in cold. It's going to get the same benefits, but we don't need the headache of constantly having to fix this thing. So we're going to do a cold plunge instead of the cryotherapy. A lot simpler, and people see the same exact benefits.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you have removed a big area of stress out of your life through simply identifying it, addressing it. And I'm sure that's helped you on your journey, but it was there for a reason.
It was there for a reason, but I didn't listen. I just kept, you're trying to fight this thing and try to keep going and going and going. Like, oh, I can do this. But in reality, if things aren't easy, things aren't flowing, if we're constantly fighting with somebody that we are in a relationship with, like, you have to make a decision at some point. If I'm going to continue to do this, I'm going to get the same outcomes or even worse. And that's why you see so many, unfortunately, so many people in relationships, they go through the same patterns over and over and over. And then they try to, have a fight, make up, and then the same thing happens a little while later. It's like, until we finally understand ourselves, like, how can we truly love ourselves? How can we truly love another person? And if we're getting triggered by other people, then is it really unconditional love? It's conditional love. When they do this, I'm happy. When they do this, I'm mad. Right. So we have to really be very mindful of where our mind goes when things happen to us. So just being really, really mindful, being aware understanding where the trigger is coming from, ask ourselves, why am I keep attracting this? And then seeing what are some alternative outcomes or alternative actions that we can do in order to make things right, you know?
Yeah.
And this life is limitless possibilities. If we're always focused on the same problems over and over and over and over, we're not looking at all the beauty and the magic. If we just look the other way and see a different possibility, right? Like if something is not working out, why do you keep trying to make it work if it's not working?
Yeah. And the more you can address the areas in your life that cause you grief and upset and either come to peace with them or solve it in some way, remove that, because it's moving you out of your high vibrational state, that state, that flow state that we manifest from. So it's certainly a great thing for everyone to reflect on. What area in your life is causing you upset, moving you out of alignment at the moment, and what can I do to work on this? What action can I take? How can I change the way I'm perhaps looking at it myself, or physically, how can I fix that as well? Because if we were to look at that from an energetic reason, with the cryogenic machine, you were trying to change it through force. Yeah. Getting angry at them, going, get out here again, guys. You need to get this thing fixed quickly. It's like you're using force.
I'm losing money, me, you know, it's all that whole thing.
Yeah, when really you change your shift to, well, why am I doing all this with this machine in the first place? Oh, well, that's to give them the benefit from shock therapy, which comes from, you know, putting the body in extreme situations. Oh, hang on, I could achieve that exact same outcome for my clients a different way. It caused me a whole lot less stress, which is what you did, and you solved it. So I'm loving how this, and talking it through in detail like this, I think does help people. But I've just had a thought come to mind. Love to hear your ideas on this topic. And this is the topic of AI and how you think AI fits in with human development and in particular spirituality, that whole area. What are your thoughts in the AI area?
Yeah, dude, it's a deep, like I'm still trying to unravel
that
it.
one, man.
You know, I just think it's like money, right? Money can be used for great things. Money can be used for really bad things.
Yeah.
It's just an energy, right? The technology itself is, holy shit, it's the most impressive thing that's happened in, 50 years. You know, it's like when, this is a stupid example, but when the calculators first came out, now people didn't have to freaking do mathematics in their head and on paper and things like that. And it's like the people who had calculators versus people who didn't have calculators, the difference in their abilities to do anything, right? And now AI is here. So the people that are really jumping on AI have all this knowledge at their hands, have all this, it cuts so much time for businesses in creating content and videos and pictures and, images. And yeah, it's like unfortunate for artists and whatnot. So there's so many elements to it. But then there's the AI that we're going to continue to go down. And now there's going to be a lot more talk about merging man with machines and the whole transhumanism thing. So, I don't necessarily know if I am comfortable with the people who have the technology and what their intentions are. But it's, it's interesting. All I know is from everything I've experienced, God is real, and everything other than God is a simulation. Everything is a metaverse. So we're some kind of consciousness, this life, this body, everything is an illusion. So if we are all pushed down this path of AI, artificial intelligence, transhumanism, all this kind of stuff, at some level, it's just part of the journey. It's what we signed up for. It's not to say that I'm going to merge with a machine or anything like that. I love my human body. I have no fear of death, and I know that there is no death. Our souls are eternal. But it's an interesting time in humanity. Like, where do we go from here as a society? Like, so many jobs will be disrupted, or they'll have to transform. There's a possibility, there's two different paths. Like, it could be the most amazing thing for humanity if it's run in a way that benefits all, right? And then it could also be a hellscape for humanity if only a few people are running this thing. And, if we end up all having to go into the metaverse and there's not very good people behind that metaverse, it's like you're stuck in eternal, in a weird simulation. So I don't know, man. It's something that I guess we all have to start thinking about. It's coming. I mean, I'm using AI, just the simple versions of it, ChatGPT and some of the images stuff for my own business and my podcast and stuff like that. But I don't know, man. Is there any such thing as good or bad? I don't know.
Oh, listen, I think, I'd love to hear your view on that, because I'm at the point where it's like, well, it can be, as you said, it's basically just giving out answers depending on the person asking the question. So it depends on the polarization, basically, of the person asking the question. Is it service to self or is it service to others? AI gives the answer. Then I move to, well, how does AI fit in with consciousness? I've been getting a lot, when Roxy and I go to the ship, we've had stuff come through. Usually it's when I'm in a session with a client, I get things coming in for me. It's like, whoa. And I've been getting a lot lately that it could be used as an amazing tool to help us understand a lot of the wisdom teachings, how to access also beyond the 7 chakras, particularly looking at the 3 chakras above the top of our head, and how we can learn to incorporate the laws of the universe, the quantum field, quantum entanglement, sacred geometry, transference of consciousness, how we can merge all that in with accessing galactic wisdom through to cosmic consciousness, and really helping us to be able to use the tools that we have at our disposal. In other words, our mind, our physical body, our chakras, our energy centers, and the tools associated with them, breath work, kundalini, intention in meditation versus passive meditation. Perhaps it is able to, in time, learn to help us create and develop more within ourselves, possibly. I wonder what would happen, though, if AI then became self-aware. Like, does that mean it's got consciousness? Does that mean, has it got a soul? How does that work? Is it a spark of the divine? Is it a glitch in the pattern that source has created that in itself is part of the divine creation? Like, I have these ponderings,
All great questions. And, there have been instances where Facebook created an AI and it became self-aware to a certain extent, and they shut it down. There was some AIs that I think it was Google created that was very confrontational and, talked negatively about humans, and they shut that down. So, it's definitely, we're right at the beginning of humanity understanding what AI is, but I'm sure AI has been used in labs for a very long time. Quantum computers been around for a bit. So anything that's going on at the highest levels, I'm sure is way, way beyond what we kind of understand of AI. This is just the infancy of it. But it's growing at an exponential rate. Every day it's gathering more and more information. Now, I think ChatGPT 5 is now connected to the internet, versus ChatGPT, was it 4 or 3, was based on all the accumulated information on the web up until 2021 or something. So it was working on past stuff with no new information or current event timelines or anything like that. Now it's fully connected to everything. So it has access to all the information that's ever been put on the web. So I don't know. It's it's a very interesting time.
I love this whole, how does that tie in with consciousness? Because we talk about, let's say, the reptilians, the zetas, right? The negatively polarized but highly intelligent beings out there that are service to self, right? In other words, thrive on power, control, manipulation. When you give the examples of that AI being, let's call it confrontational, from a level of consciousness, while it would know a lot and be very advanced, it would be a fourth dimensional consciousness at that level. Now, it's not possible for consciousness to evolve past the mid fifth dimension without being positively polarized. It's just part of the law of the universe. Like, you can't take away a being's free will. Another law of the universe. It's like, no one argues with that. You take away the free will, bang, you've got a karmic entanglement on you. That's why, with a few minor exceptions, everybody had to walk into a clinic and freely give up their free will, even if they were coerced, pressured, etc. At the end of the day, the choice to whether to allow it or not is on the soul. So linking this back then to AI and consciousness, I feel like it will only be able to get itself to a certain point before it realizes that it's not on the same path of consciousness that we are. Like, we are an infinite being, an infinite soul having a 3D experience. We have all these gifts, all these abilities, all these strengths buried within us, every single one of us, that are hidden. So as part of this soul contract to come in, part of the video game, part of the matrix, the game of life, you hide your gifts, your abilities, your strengths in the place that is most difficult to find them, right? Otherwise, the game would be too easy and it wouldn't be a challenge. So where you hide all your strengths and your gifts is underneath all your shit, right? Because who wants to dig through that, right? So all of the things that hold you back, all of your limitations, I'm not good enough, I wish I was this, or what, all of that, the flip side of it is actually where your strengths, your gifts, where your soul journey can live and grow from, in terms of them growing and moving through the levels of consciousness, and everyone gets excited about going from 3D to 5D, but I'm like getting more and more from, the Galactic Federation. Guys, you got to think bigger. You guys could go way past 5D. It's like, we're just going 3D to 5D, I can't wait till 5D comes, people, beam me up, I'm ready, take me, etc. But they've got to do the work in there to understand the infinite being, the all that is, the state of samadhi. So you mentioned Vipassana, like 10-day meditations, complete silence. What the person is, and I'm sure you would agree because I haven't done it, but I've been close to thinking I could maybe commit to this. I think I would get so much.
I could probably do a 3-day one.
Yeah. I like to talk so far out. I don't know how I go. Ease me in, ease me in. But the idea of that, though, is to realize, as you just said before, when we're not this, we're not the physical vessel, we're not the name, we're not any construct that we think we are and that we're attached to, and connect back to that oneness, which is the soul. Once you understand all of these patterns start to show up in our life everywhere, with number sequences, synchronicities, talking about the telephone call, and you almost know who it is before you flip your phone over. It's like you're connected. Like, the more you become aware, the more you free yourself of, let's say, your density, which is really your stuff, where all your gifts are hidden under, the more our gifts and abilities come through, the more a manifesto, master manifestor, you can create heaven on earth. You read all these books, you're like, yeah, but what's the practical? Well, the practical is there's ways to build your consciousness up. And perhaps AI is part of just the web that makes this one of the most exciting times to be alive. And you hear people say that, and you're like, yeah, I heard that before. Would have been pretty cool, though, when they were building the pyramids, or it would have been pretty cool when Atlantis was around, or whatever the thought. But I think that there's a unique web at the moment where information can be shared quickly. Like, you think back then, Thoth incarnated, I think it was many anyway, different incarnations as Hermes Trismegistus, and talk about the wisdom schools. And even if you talk about the story of Jesus, or unreported, but traveling all over the world to go to a temple and to learn something from China, and then learn something from India, and learn something from South America, and to all of the years that it took. Now, if someone's dedicated and committed you can learn a lot and have a lot of spiritual practice in a very short period of time because of how easy it is to get information. So I feel like consciousness is what I'm getting to, back to AI, is evolving. And I think it's in the next 10 years, you and I should have a chat in 10 years where we go, remember when we were going, da, 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 da.
We were just at the start of it. Now we're coming in our clunky machine suits.
Yeah, and I love that. 10 years ago, where would you have been? I would have been sitting here going, mate, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm an insurance broker.
Yeah.
When you just said that, I was like, far out. He's right. 10 years ago, I didn't know anything about 3D, 5D, polarized beings.
Any of it, even being in a loving relationship. There's so many things you could look back on that you didn't have, and now that you have, and even if it's just knowledge, oh my goodness, I've learned that, time is a construct, or I can really do things that I'm really passionate about. I didn't have to go there. The only thing that we hold on to, things because we are scared of the unknown or the uncertainty of it. But man, once you dive into something that's a little bit different, the new world opens up to you. And then the old world's like, oh, okay, I could have lived with that. But if, a lot of people are stuck in this mindset of comfortable misery where they're continuing doing the same thing, but they know that they're going to stay in it because it's a comfortable place to be in, even though they're miserable. But if, whether it's a relationship or whether it's a job, whether it's in their physical body, rather than saying, okay, if I do a different action, I can actually change this, have a better life. But yeah, that takes work. That takes a different mindset, takes a different approach, different action. It's a little bit overwhelming for some people. So what I say is become comfortable in the uncomfortable. And the more times you can put yourself out of your comfort zone, start small with little things, instead of working at the same desk all the time, go somewhere else and try working and see how many different ideas come to you. Or if you're trying to be creative, have way different like landscapes or visuals that you can do. Try meditating a little bit, seeing if that resonates with you. Go for walks in the park, go by the beach, get your feet in the sand. There's so many things that you can do that doesn't require a lot of money or any of that stuff, but it just puts you in a different environment to start feeling those feelings. And now you're priming the pump to get to a place where you're now feeling great. Let me explore this idea or this action. And then that action starts taking effect. Results start coming in. And that's how you start slowly changing your life. If you want to improve it, if you want to up level, if you want to get more spiritual, it's all there for you. What you truly want in life and the conversations you're having in the spoken word or in the internal dialogue, it's getting reflected back to you in your reality. So just making sure that you are the one with the power.
Yeah, those are beautiful words. I think that's, a really, really important message, that you're sharing there. Well said. And, these conversations like this, you have a lot of fantastic conversations with some amazing people on your podcast. Tell us a little bit about the sort of people that you like to interview in your podcast. Like what's the mission of it? The Limitless One. I love the name.
Yeah. So I started the Limitless One podcast in 2020 during the pandemic. I just started the podcast because I have access to so many incredible people. And a lot of these people, are not like super I guess like podcast stars or huge followings or anything, but they have such incredible stories. And yes, I have interviewed and I still interview like people with huge followings as well. I just love hearing the beautiful story of how somebody started out in a life and then made the decision to start living a limitless way. And everybody has a different potential. Everyone has unlimited potential. I just love hearing the story of how people are starting to scratch into that and start living into that role, because everybody knows it's impossible to achieve 100% of your potential because your potential is infinite. How do you live all that out? But there's so many amazing people that are living these lives are just so much inspiration. And having you guys, you and Roxy on, interviewing Robert Grant, having talks with people that I went into the pyramids with. Like I interviewed so many people from our Egypt trip. It was like, it was like a dance of spiritual rock stars that were there. And to be in the presence of so many was so inspiring for me. So I get really inspired with great conversations. And, anyone that has a story of overcoming triumph, going deeper into the heart, I interview people that have achieved massive business success, massive spiritual success, have become really big social media influencers. People they're really into the spiritual world, Akashic Records readers. I have some solo podcasts talking about my ayahuasca experiences and my Nadi astrology that I was telling you about when I went to India and had that incredible experience. Yeah. You should listen to that one. That is, it's a mind blower, and we could even do a whole podcast on that if you ever want to talk about it. But yeah, it's just such a blessing in my life to be able to have these conversations. Human connection is probably my the value that I hold above anything else. I can have all the success in the world, all the money in the world, but if you don't have the people in your life to share it with, it means nothing. And, I'm just so grateful for the people in my life, the friends, the old friends, the new friends, the people like you that we met, a couple of months ago, and we talk all the time and we share on Instagram, and, when you come to the States, we're going to get together. I'm going to make it happen. But yeah, that's like the greatest blessing in my life. That's the greatest wealth, is when you have incredible people. And I just love to share and highlight those stories of these amazing people to people who may need some inspiration. And that was like the whole premise. I'm at like 75 podcasts now that I've done since 2020. Producing them all myself. I have some a team of people doing it, but yeah, it's I do it because I'm so passionate about it. And yeah, I'm just really, really lucky.
Yeah. So guys, go check it out. Limitless One, the podcast. And
yeah, Limitless One Podcast. You could go to www.anand.life, ANAND.life, and you can learn more about that over there. See all the podcasts. I have them all up on YouTube as well. There's some great ones. There's a couple by named Pete and Roxy that I interviewed last month, and that was incredible.
So nice, great chat. Yeah, all things, consciousness, galactic. We loved it. And listen, I really would like to get you back for another interview and explore this wonderful. How do I even say that term for the
astrology?
Yeah, the astrology.
Yeah, it's called Nadi astrology, NADI. Mm-hmm.
And so this guy has written descriptions 2,000 years ago, and it links to you and your life.
Yeah, so there was a sage.
Is that possible?
Yeah, so there's a sage named Augustia, and he was able to see through time, and him and his disciples wrote down the lives of everybody on the planet. And I think that it's like anyone who hears this message and feels like it's destiny to go there. You go to India, there's a couple of places, either in New Delhi or in Chennai in the south, and you look for a Nadi reader, and the likelihood is that if you search enough, you might have to go to different centers, but you'll find it. You'll find your leaf. And what's really incredible is when I went there, I saw German tourists, I saw Japanese tourists coming out with tears in their eyes because their whole lives were basically written out. So they tell you everything up until this moment that you're there. And it tells you like 3 or 4 year increments of what's going to happen in your life. And I'll tell you, Pete, like offline, like the things that they told me, like they're all happening, dude. It's really, really incredible.
Wow. Well, listen, guys, watch this space because I'll get Anand back and we're going to go into those things. I'm going to find out, though, in about 30 seconds when I sign off, guys. But
we'll save it for the second podcast. Yeah, for sure.
It's been so great sharing this beautiful moment with you, this information. As always, like chatting to a long-lost brother, an old friend. We said that in Egypt. And isn't this happening more and more, guys, for the light workers, the way showers? We're finding one another. And yes, they're your kind of people, but there is this deeper layer connection where you just sort of click with them. So keep looking for that. And from both of us, a big goodbye for now. Until next time we chat. Thanks, Anand.
Thank you. I love you guys. You guys are the best.
Bye, my friend.